Make sure to leave a like, turn on notifications, and subscribe for more history. In 1807, Napoleon had secured French domination on the continent of Europe. By this point, Napoleon began to grow more tyrannical, which began to create cracks in his reign. Napoleon's biggest battles were on the horizon, as his judgment in military strategy diminished. Napoleon would lead France down an unrecoverable path that ultimately leads to Napoleon's demise. The year is 1807. Napoleon creates the Continental system to blockade Britain. After securing the European mainland, Napoleon put his gaze on Great Britain. Knowing he could not invade Britain by land, he looked to bleed London dry of its wealth by instituting the Continental system, which would block Britain from trading with any countries on the mainland. This had little effect on Britain. Instead, Napoleon developed a new fascination in the Iberian Peninsula. Napoleon would be authoritarian in Spain and conquer Portugal, which forces the royal family to flee to Brazil. Spanish citizens began to not like the French ruling their country as dissent grew. Napoleon's troops would be defeated at the Battle of Bailén. The British would land in Portugal and push out the rest of the French troops from Iberia. News of this spread through Europe as the Fifth Coalition is formed against France. Napoleon would eventually bring Iberia back to a place of stability. Austria joins through the aid of Britain. But is ultimately unsuccessful after the crushing defeat in the Battle of Wagram. Austria is forced into a peace deal, which includes an alliance through marriage where Napoleon divorces Josephine and marries Marie-Louise. After attempts to sway Tsar Nicholas to go to war against Britain, Napoleon invades Russia. Napoleon's troops begin to march deep into Russian territory towards Moscow. However, the Russians resort to scorched earth tactics as they retreat to Moscow and lure Napoleon in. Moscow is abandoned and winter approaches. Napoleon is forced to retreat, but the Russians are one step ahead and corner Napoleon at the Battle of Borodino. It is a devastating defeat for Napoleon as he abandons what's left of his army. More than 400,000 French soldiers die. The Sixth Coalition is formed. Napoleon's troops are forced out of Iberia by British troops that landed in Portugal. Back in the east, Napoleon faces off with the Russian and Prussian armies. Napoleon beats the odds and wins 3 battles over the combined forces. Until Austria joins the coalition and defeats Napoleon at the Battle of Leipzig. Swedish, Russian, Prussian, and Austrian forces encroach on the French border, which forces the government to sign an armistice. Napoleon is exiled to the island of Corsica, where he remains until he returns to France and makes his way back to Paris, where he is greeted as a hero. News of this travels to other countries as they form the Seventh Coalition. Napoleon leads his troops to the Belgian region of Flanders, where he splits his army to deal with the Prussians at the Battle of Wavre, and the British forces led by the Duke of Wellington at the well-known Battle of Waterloo. Unfortunately for Napoleon, he is unsuccessful at the Battle of Waterloo. Napoleon is now seen as a fugitive as he makes an attempt to escape France to go to America. He is caught and sent to the remote island of St. Helena off the coast of Africa. Napoleon would end up living out the rest of his days there, dying in 1821. Despite what many may think of Napoleon, he ultimately was responsible for bringing the idea of revolution to other European countries, where the rights of man and enlightenment were eventually adopted. Napoleon was a tyrant to many, a philosopher to others, and a legend to history, bringing monarchies to their knees time and time again.